Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our CAL FIRE Office of the State Fire Marshal Community Wildfire Preparedness and Mitigation webinar. My name is Kara Garrett, and I will be the moderator of this series. This webinar will last about 30 minutes, and it will be recorded. If you have any questions, please type them into the Q&A portion of the screen, and we will answer them as quickly as possible. After our featured speaker has completed their presentation, we will be holding a question and answer session. If you have questions after the webinar has concluded, we will be providing contact information for the program itself to allow you to reach out to them directly. All webinar documentation, including the PDF of the PowerPoint presentation you will see today during this recording, and all other recorded documentation discussed during this presentation will be available at our website in the link provided at osfm.fire.ca.gov under our Wildfire-Public-Education portion of the website. As I mentioned, if you have any issues during this webinar, please give me a call at 916-201-5539 or send me an email at Kara, K-A-R-A, Garrett, @fire.ca.gov, and I will make sure that you're handled. So today's webinar will focus on our home hardening program, and to get us started, I will have Acting State Fire Marshal Daniel Berlant and Deputy Director of our Community Wildfire Preparedness and Mitigation Program say a few words. So take it away, Chief.
Great. Well, good morning, everyone. And first, thank you for taking the time to join us this morning to talk about such an important topic. Whether this is your first webinar with us or whether you're joining us specifically on this topic, we appreciate you taking the time. Obviously, the past 5 years, we here in California, we've all experienced not only the largest wildfires in our state's history, at least in recorded time, but some of the most destructive. In fact, if you look back in the last 5-6 years, over 50,000 homes have been destroyed by wildfires. And so the need to really ensure that we are preparing communities has never been more important. And while our strategy has really been to do an all of the above type of concept, do work in our forest, build fuel breaks between our communities and between wildland areas, but also to focus on parcel level mitigations, including defensible space and home hardening. Since 2008, here in California, we've arguably had some of the most stringent building codes as we build new homes. But how do we address the hundreds of thousands of homes that are in wildfire hazard areas? How do we bring them up to standard? And that's where retrofitting and home hardening really has become an increased focus in the last couple of years. So appreciate you taking the time, and I don't want to waste too much of the good information that our team today has to present to you. So Kara, I will turn it back to you, and let's get started.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Chief. So now I will turn it over to our presenter, Assistant Chief Dennis O'Neill, to introduce himself and share information about the Home Hardening Program. Go ahead, Chief.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. And again, we also want to reiterate, we're very happy that you are spending some time out of your day to learn some important information about our Home Hardening Program. My name is Denny O'Neill, and I'm the Assistant Chief of our Home Hardening Program, which is CAL FIRE Office of the State Fire Marshal. If you can go ahead to the next slide. So today for this presentation, we're going to discuss three things. I'm going to define what home hardening is. I'm going to discuss why home hardening is important. And then I'm going to discuss what CAL FIRE Office of State Fire Marshal, our home hardening program, is doing to assist homeowners out there in the field. So what is home hardening? So home hardening is the term used to describe building materials, systems, and assemblies used in the exterior design, construction, or retrofitting of buildings to resist the intrusion of flames or embers projected by a wildland fire. So the term home hardening, when we think of home hardening, it does apply to brand new buildings, but most of the pretext of what we're talking about when we're talking about home hardening is retrofitting older homes or homes that were built prior to the Wildland Urban Interface codes in California, which I'll be talking about shortly. So basically, so 101 on how your home may ignite. Usually the three main things are going to be direct flame, radiant heat, or embers. And direct flame basically is flames or combustible materials burning up to your home and igniting combustible materials on your home, catching your house on fire. The other mechanism is radiant heat. It's like the heat you feel when you're around a campfire. And radiant heat, if you have something burning adjacent to your structure, can cause a failure such as a window to break, or it can actually ignite combustible material on your house. And then the final one is embers. And we all know that embers are a huge challenge to the ignitability of structures, and that the embers they can come from up adjacent to your house, but a lot of times embers come in from outside of your parcel area. And they can come in from a long distance, and embers find combustible material either adjacent to your house, which is a vulnerability and can cause your house to catch on fire. 60 to 90% of embers, or we're pretty sure that between 60 to 90% of fires, structures that ignite, are probably attributed to embers. So home hardening, with our program, we also consider the relationship between the primary resident and its exposure to nearby combustibles. So when we talk about our home hardening, if you look at the middle of the screen, when we talk about your primary structure vulnerabilities, and those are the common things that can be vulnerable to embers, fire, or radiation. And those common things are your roofing material, vents, exterior covering, your exterior windows, skylights, and doors, and then decking or other attachments that are attached to your house. But we don't want to focus just on the house itself. We also have to look at what are those potential sources of embers, flame, or radiation that are around your house. And so the biggest one is wildland vegetation. There's other residences that could be near to your structure, ornamental vegetation that's around your house, other combustibles such as firewood, vehicles. There's been a lot of research now that cars, boats, RVs can be a potential source of flame, radiation, or embers towards your primary structure. The other one are accessory buildings, which include sheds, detached garage, carports, and barns, or other miscellaneous structures such as playground equipment, fences, retaining walls, or pergolas. So this is an example of how those things that are around your house can catch on fire and create pathways for your structure to burn. So this is a grass fire that was outside of a community outside of Dallas. And what you can see in this picture is you see a grass fire with small flame links that caught a fence on fire, and there was a wind on this fire. But that small flame links that came off the grass ignited a fence, which ignited the shed that you see that's on fire, that produced the radiant heat, direct flames, and obviously embers that impinged upon the structure on the left. And that structure did burn down. I just don't have a picture of it here, but this is an example of that pathway. And when we talk about home hardening, the importance of not just looking at the structure itself and those vulnerabilities, but also the things that are located around that structure. So next slide. And when we talk about fire resistant standards, we talk about the California Building Code Chapter 7A, Materials and Construction Methods for Exterior Wildfire Exposure. And those are minimum standards. California has been the front runner on getting building construction standards going in wildland areas. And ours started or came into effect January 1st, 2008. And so those standards are minimum standards to resist the intrusion of flames and burning embers into your structure. And so those codes are based off of science, and we have a lot of contributors that we work with that have been providing a lot of good information and science to be able to back up a lot of these codes that provide fire resistance to your structure. I said before, but these codes started in 2008. So any new building after that date that was in a wildland area would have to be built under these standards. And the areas that those codes apply to are all fire hazard zones in state responsibility areas, very high fire hazard severity zones in local agencies, or wildland urban interface areas that have been designated by cities or local governments. And these codes address the following building components. They They talk about vegetation management compliance, which we normally refer to as defensible space, roofing, vents, exterior coverings, exterior windows, skylights, doors, decking, and other accessory buildings and miscellaneous structures. So why is home hardening so important? So if you look at the graph on the left, that kind of indicates the top 20 largest California wildfires. And if you look at the red, where it says 2020 to 2021, more than half of all the largest fires have occurred between 2020 and 2021. And then if you look at the pie chart on the right, those would be the top 20 largest destructive fires in California. And if you look at the 2010 to 2019 areas, along with the 2020 and 2021, so 3/4 of the top 20 fires, most destructive fires, have occurred since 2010. Some other basic statistics, and I think Chief Berlant kind of mentioned that if you look at those top 20 most destructive fires, there's been more than 52,469 structures that were destroyed, and we also lost 203 lives. So part of our project, we put together the graph over on the left, and what that shows is parcels in very high fire hazard severity zones in the state of California. And what we wanted to find out is how many of those parcels that had a value, a property value over $10,000, when those improvements were built. And so if you look at all the gray lines, those lines each represent a decade of buildings. And then over on the left-hand side, it tells you the total number. And then if you look at the right, the green, the farthest bar on the right, that would be all of the parcels that have an improvement over $10,000 in very high fire hazard severity zones that were built after the Chapter 7A codes started. So what this chart kind of shows is that we have this gigantic population of structures or buildings that are out there that were built prior to our 7A codes. And all of those buildings have vulnerabilities or may have vulnerabilities that our department would like to address. And then, so a little bit about our program. So our home hardening program is a relatively new program. And like I said before, we're under CAL FIRE, under the Office of the State Fire Marshal, and we're also under the Community Wildfire Preparedness and Mitigation Division. And the home hardening program is a part of that division, and I'll go into a little bit more detail on exactly what we do. So we're a part of, we have some of our home hardening personnel participate in the Office of State Fire Marshal, California Building Code Chapter 7A Working Group. So the California Building Code Chapter 7A gets updated approximately every 3 years. It's on a triannual code adoption process. And the agency that's responsible for that is the California Building Standards Commission. And then also under the Office of the State Fire Marshal, we have our Code Development and Analysis Division that is responsible for looking at the California Building Code Chapter 7A, and every 3 years evaluating to see if there needs to be updates to that code. And so we sit on that very important committee. And a big part of that, and I mentioned it before, is there's a lot of agencies that are out there that are assisting in scientific research on building resistance. One would be the IBHS or the IBHS or NIST are two agencies that we work with that do a lot of scientific research that we use to be able to update those codes. So another big program that we're tasked with is the California Wildfire Mitigation Program. The legislation that started that program was Assembly Bill 38, the Fire Safety Low Cost Retrofit Regional Capacity Review Wildfire Mitigation Program. And it directed CAL FIRE and OES to form a JPA to develop and administer a comprehensive wildfire mitigation program. The objectives of that are to encourage cost-effective structure hardening, facilitate vegetation management, the creation and maintenance of defensible space and other fuel modification activities, and then offer financial assistance to those eligible under the program. So the current program that we're under, we're using FEMA funds, and we're also using state funds. And the ratio right now is 75% FEMA to 25% match with state funds. We've also been able to leverage more FEMA funds just recently. And it directed our JPA to develop some criteria, a scoring methodology to prioritize who gets that financial assistance. And what we did when we did that prioritization is we looked at areas and communities that were vulnerable to wildfire, also their future impact to climate risk. And then we're also looking for vulnerable populations. And so by doing that, we did a full analysis and was able to rate all of the counties in the state of California on that financial assistance. And then the areas that are eligible for the financial assistance are all state responsibility areas located in any fire hazard severity zone. And then in local responsibility areas, only areas that are in very high fire hazard severity zones. So some of our accomplishments to date. So this program has been going for a little while now, and we've selected 3 pilot communities. The current communities are Whitmore and Shasta County, Del Sur and San Diego County, and Kelseyville, Riviera, and Lake County. And we're also working with El Dorado County and Tuolumne County. They're in the process of turning in applications to become future pilot programs. And in these pilot programs, we're building the program. We're building this program out, and we're taking all of the lessons that we're learning in these pilot programs. And those lessons that we learned in the program that we build will be used to refine the program before we expand it out to additional areas within the state. So another big part of our home hardening program is providing training and education. One of the best sites to go look for our home hardening information is Ready for Wildfire. And under Ready for Wildfire, we have a Prepare tab. And under that, you'll find another tab that will take you to hardening your home. Okay, next slide. So the link that was just on that last slide, this PowerPoint will be uploaded after I'm done. Or you can email me at any time if you want further information. But some of the good things that we have on that site is we have this low-cost retrofit list. And this is a list of things a homeowner could do that are low cost to help reduce the possibilities of your house being affected by embers, flame, or radiant heat. And they're low cost. So they're things that you can easily do that don't cost a lot of money. So we highly recommend that you get on there, check out that list. And then another part of that list is a link to the thing on the right, which is our WUI, Wildland Urban Interface Products Handbook. And that handbook outlines products that have been tested and approved that Chapter 7A has approved to be able to use. So it's fire resistant materials that you can use to help upgrade your home to help make it meet the intent of Chapter 7A. The other thing that you can find on our website is our Wildfire Home Retrofit Guide. That's a great guide that you can download, and it'll walk you through assessing your home, and it gives you some great ideas on things that you can do to make your home safer. And then also a part of our website is we have some useful link tabs. And so I've mentioned a couple times, we have a lot of cooperators that we work with. The University of California, there's a great link there. They have a great website that provides a lot of information on how to assess your home for wildfire hazard vulnerabilities, and then also a lot of good information on home retrofitting. And then the IBHS is another important contributor, and that is the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety, IBHS. They're one of our contributors to scientific research, along with NIST, the National Institutes of Standard and Technology. And I highly recommend that you visit their website. They have some great wildfire guidance areas. They have a program called Wildfire Ready. And then they also have a program where you can designate your home as a wildfire prepared home. So we do provide some links to some great resources for you. Next slide. So I know that was a quick, brief overview of our program and some of the things that we offer. We know that it's very important that if you have a house that was built prior to 2008 and built prior to the fire codes being established, then you probably have a home that may have some vulnerabilities, that there's a lot of things that you as a homeowner can do. And we highly recommend that you visit our website and take advantage of those tools. And we also recommend that you contact your local fire protection agency. They usually have people on staff that are very educated on how to assess your home and how to make recommendations on retrofitting your home to bring it up to a standard that helps protect your home from flames, embers, and radiant heat. So that's all I had. Thank you for your time.
Okay, everyone. So if you have a question, we do have about 9 minutes left. Go ahead and raise your hand and I will unmute you. Okay, we have our first one. We have Larry Williams. Go ahead.
Good morning. Thank you for this presentation. Chief O'Neill, as far as the pilot programs are, what is a process for the funding of that for the homeowners? Or is it a grant, or is it something that's put on their title on the deed? How does that work?
Yeah, so our program, and I'll have my assistant drop the link. We have two websites for that program. Our CAL FIRE office, the State Fire Marshal, has a website. And then I'm probably going to recommend that you go to the website for Cal OES, because Cal OES has a lot of good information on the application process. And so the program right now is in the pilot stage. We ranked all the counties in the state. And so what we've done is we've picked some pilot communities scattered throughout the state that represent different types of WUI environments. So we have some dense environments and some WUI environments that have houses that are scattered far apart, and then different types of vegetation. And then once we've picked that county, we've approached the county to find areas that are vulnerable and have socially vulnerable populations that are high fire hazard areas. And then we work with a community group. And so right now we're working with Fire Safe Council, we're working with a county, and we're working with another county agency. And they're the ones facilitating the grant funds. And so we give that community the grant funds, the property owners apply for the funds, and then the property owner is allotted a percentage of those funds depending upon their vulnerability. And so right now, at a minimum, 75% would be taken care of by the project. And then depending upon their income levels, the state will either pay for the remaining 25%, or the homeowner may have to pay a portion depending upon their income. But the homeowner never actually receives the money in hand. It's done through that community group that we're working with. Did that answer your question?
Yes. Well, so it's the amount that's given to them is deemed to be a grant then, and is not paid back.
That's correct. That's correct. And right now, generally speaking, because we are in a pilot program, but we are looking around $40,000 per house, which would be what they would be granted. And then again, 25% of that depends upon their income level.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Next question, we have Shane McLaughlin.
Do you have a question, Shane?
Yeah, can you hear me, sir?
Yes.
Quick question, sir. Thanks for your time. Are you guys vetting, or who's doing the work for these grants that are actually installing the vents or the home hardening products? Are you guys vetting these contractors? And if so, how does a company go about doing that?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. Thanks for that. So I'll use San Diego, our pilot program in San Diego as an example. So we are working directly with the county on that project. So the grant award E would be the county. And then Cal OES works hand in hand with the county through an application process where the homeowner applies through the county. And so as far as the work being done, the county of San Diego, and every county is going to be a little bit, or every cooperator we work with is going to be a little bit different. But they have a process for vetting the contractors that they're going to be using. So my recommendation is, if you're interested, it would be to look at where those programs are at. And you can go to San Diego County, and I know they have a lot of very good information. You could probably even Google the CWMP for San Diego County, and they have a website that you can get to that would tell you, if you were a contractor, how you could apply to be vetted for that program.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we have about 4 minutes to go, so we can take 1 or 2 more questions if anyone wants to raise your hand. Okay, we have Larry Williams, go ahead.
Thank you. You mentioned you guys that you rated each of the counties. How do we see a copy of where all the different counties rate the listing?
So I'll have my assistant drop in the chat. There's 2 different websites. One would be the California Office of State Fire Marshal website, or OES's website for the California Wildfire Mitigation Program. And there's an actual JPA, and they have meetings and agendas. And so you can go back to one of our past meetings or agendas, and you can find that information. And if you're interested in the program, I highly recommend that you go to those websites and find out. We do have regular meetings, and the general public is allowed to participate in those meetings.
Thank you. Your next meetings during our fire hazards varies on map public meeting, unfortunately.
Okay, and I still see Shane's hand up, and that will be the last question that we will be taking for the day. Shane, do you still have a question?
Negative, sorry.
Okay.
My etiquette's off. Thank you,
No,
though. Thank you
no.
to you and your team and chief for that answer.
No problem at all. Yeah, thank you so much, Chief, for making this happen, and wonderful presentation today. And I do see a question. Can you link the recording of this webinar when posted to your FireWise community website? Absolutely. So I will be downloading this webinar recording onto our YouTube channel and posting it for anyone to share. And also, if you do not already follow us on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, please go ahead and do so. We are separate from the main CAL FIRE one. So go ahead and give us a like. So feel free to share any of this information. We will also have that PDF downloaded on our website as well. So for our upcoming webinars, thank you for joining us today. Our next one will be on January 23rd, and we will be discussing defensible space. And then those are some other dates coming up through February and March. But if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, as we mentioned before, and go to that website with any questions as well. And I will go ahead and end this recording. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today, and have a wonderful rest of your day, week, and stay safe.
Thank you, everyone.